And mothers stood with streaming eyes and saw their dearest children sold. Unheeded rose their bitter cries, while tyrants bartered them for gold. These words emerge from the poem titled The Slave Auction, written by Francis Ellen Watkins Harper in 1894. Francis Harper, whose birthday was yesterday, by the way, was an African-American abolitionist, teacher, and poet who spent her life energy working for the freedom of Black people in America. Throughout this entire poem, which I commend to you, Harper gives voice to and paints a picture of the dehumanizing treatment of Africans enslaved in America and its devastating impact on Black women, men, and children. Black families were chopped into pieces on the auction block. Husbands sold apart from wives and children ripped from their mothers' breasts. And mothers stood with streaming eyes and saw their dearest children sold. Unheeded rose their bitter cries, while tyrants bartered them for gold. However, even after the technical abolishment of slavery, the alleged Reconstruction years, the struggle for civil rights in the 50s and 60s, and even the election of a Black president. Even after all of this, Black mothers are still standing on US streets with streaming eyes. Black mothers are standing in the streets and crying out for justice for their child that has been killed by a police officer who took an oath to serve and protect. Black mothers are standing in the streets and crying out over the life of a child who has been ripped away by gun violence in a community where illegal guns, drugs, underfunded schools are plentiful, but living wages, adequate housing are not. Did you know that the leading cause of death for young Black men ages 15 to 34 in the United States of America is homicide? If that were true for white young men ages 15 to 34 in the United States of America, we would see it declared as a public health crisis. There would be federal, state, and local resources applied to address the root causes of the issues, and there would be a complete frontal assault against that epidemic. But because this is happening to Black people, we do not see that type of response. We do not see that level of investment. Here we have in October coming up Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And one of the reasons that so many women around the world have been able to get the resources that they need, the medical treatments that they need to detect breast cancer early and for treatment, is because of all of the efforts that have been made to raise awareness and to combat it. Why is that same thing not happening when the leading cause of death for young Black men ages 15 to 34 is homicide? It is only not happening because of a system of racial injustice that has permeated the United States from the time Black people were brought to that land enslaved up until this very day. Black mothers are still standing in the streets with streaming eyes over a child that has been killed unarmed by neighborhood vigilantes who claim they were just standing their ground, or a child caught in the poisonous web of mass incarceration, or as Dr. Iva has helped us to know, mass criminalization, fueled by these three strikes and your outlaws. While each of these scenarios and so many others have had devastating effects on Black communities as a whole and on Black boys and Black girls, I want to focus the rest of my remarks on young Black men. For in 2012, I was awarded a grant to engage in a congregational research project that explored Black mothers' experiences raising Black sons in the United States of America. For, during that time, there was so much talk in the media about, quote, saving our sons, and people asking, what are we going to do with young black men today? As if black boys were the problem, instead of them being born into a world that was creating a tremendous amount of problems for them and those who love them. Now, whenever these roundtable conversations were going on about young black men on CNN or MSNBC, I never, ever, ever saw a black mother at the table as a part of this conversation. Oh, I saw plenty of pundits and plenty of people who wanted to talk about young black men, but never, ever saw a living, breathing, praying black mother sitting at that table as agent, as one who could give voice and expertise and insight to not only the problem, but also toward the solutions. This meta-narrative that young black men are deviants, are thugs, are criminals, has dominated the narrative in the United States. And this narrative is wreaking havoc in their lives and in the lives of those who love them. Hearing black mothers describe the ways in which this narrative has impacted their sons and their lives have been absolutely heart-wrenching. You see, it's important to also know that in the United States, the face of good motherhood is white. Don't believe me? Open up any Good Housekeeping magazine or any other parenting magazine that shows what good motherhood looks like, and you see the face of white mothers. And so this intentional act to put at the center black mothers, to hear their voices and their lived realities, is essential. Having to live with the reality that the world too often looks upon your son with suspicion and ready to assume that he is up to no good is absolutely a horrifying existence. For it's this racist, dehumanizing narrative that allowed a jury to believe that George Zimmerman, who allowed them to believe that George Zimmerman was merely standing his ground when he stalked, pursued, and ultimately killed unarmed Trayvon Martin, a 17-year-old who was walking home from the store minding his business. If this narrative that young black men are all of these thugs, these horrible people that deserve to be killed, if that was not the prevailing narrative, there's no way in the world a jury would have said that George Zimmerman was standing his ground, even after the audio tape revealed that George Zimmerman said, these quote unquote a-holes always get away, before he grabbed his gun and went and pursued Trayvon Martin and killed him. That was stranger danger at his worst. This racist, dehumanizing narrative we heard in Ferguson when Darren Wilson gave testimony before the grand jury that, quote, he felt like a 5-year-old boy hanging on to Hulk Hogan with demon eyes in the face of Michael Brown. Now, mind you, he and Michael Brown were the same height, but he felt like he was the 5-year-old boy and Michael Brown was the big, brute beast that had to be killed before he said, and obviously the grand jury said, that's right. This narrative that's being promulgated and has infected the world. Even yesterday, when I was in the airport in Copenhagen, and I'm always, as a researcher, always looking and paying attention, and said, let me see what's on the magazine covers here at the airport in Copenhagen. And I see lots of the same kind of covers that I see in the United States, where lots of white people smiling and looking happy and doing all these fun things. And there was this one magazine where on the cover I saw a black man. And he had a slave chain around his neck and a chain coming down across his body. Of all these magazine covers in the Copenhagen airport yesterday, that was the only image I saw of a black man. This narrative that black men are these brute beasts has infected the world. It's promulgated through rhetoric. It's promulgated through music. Did you know that in the United States of America, that we have multinational, multi-billion-dollar record companies that are producing music that encourages the killing of young black men, the dehumanization of young black women? You could not, in the United States, make a song about killing cats or dogs, complete with the corresponding videos of holding up guns toward cats and dogs, without the Humane Society or the ASPCA saying, oh, no, the hell you won't. But because they're talking about songs of killing black bodies, black young men, dehumanizing black women, oh, they're just expressing their freedom. That's a bunch of baloney. You could not say that about any other racialized group, about any religious group, under the guise of quote unquote free speech. And I say it is the same racist root that is contributing to this police violence, that is contributing to the street violence where we have guns flowing freely and drugs flowing freely and the underfunding of these communities. It is that same racist root that is allowing these capitalist ventures to exploit black suffering and black pain and commodify it and call it quote unquote entertainment, all while black bodies are piling up. Prisons are filling up, school and suspension rates are climbing up, and they are laughing all the way up to the bank. We have a choice to make. We have to choose who we are going to serve. We are living in a time where we now have a president of the United States of America that would coddle and dismiss the actions of white supremacists marching with torches on a college campus in the United States that costs $50,000 a year to attend. That would dismiss that as being protesters or fine young men or all this kind of thing, but yet, just the other day, have the audacity to stand behind a podium affixed with the presidential seal and call black athletes that would dare protest police violence and oppression in this country SOBs, quote unquote. If young black men are to have a chance at thriving in this world, this racist, dehumanizing narrative has to be repealed and replaced with one that sees them as children of God, created in God's image. We've gone down this road way too long. Racism, racial injustice, white supremacy, this has been passed down from generation to generation. People aren't born this way. But as a mother, as a woman, as a citizen, as a child of God, I implore you to take all of this very seriously, realizing that black lives do matter, and all lives will not matter until black lives matter.